Within the gilded cage of opulence, a bitter truth lay festering, concealed beneath layers of polished lies and inherited prestige. I am Audrey Wilson, 34 years of age, a woman cloaked in designer silk, standing amidst the glittering facade of my father Richard's extravagant $65,000 birthday soiree. For as long as memory serves, I have been an anomaly, an outsider gazing inward at a family portrait deemed flawless by the world, yet fraught with silent discord within its pristine frame. Tonight, as the effervescent champagne flowed like a river of forgotten promises, and Chicago's elite orbited in their self-important constellations, my father, Richard, delivered a public laceration that merely affirmed the gnawing suspicion that had long resided within my soul. His words, sharp and deliberate, were the final confirmation of a truth I had always felt but never dared to voice. Little did he know, nestled deep within the confines of my purse, lay the results of a DNA test, a small, innocuous slip of paper destined to unravel the meticulously woven tapestry of our lives, changing everything irrevocably. If you're watching this, if my story resonates with the unspoken echoes of your own heart, I implore you, like this video, subscribe to my channel, share this narrative with those who need to hear it, and comment below. Letting me know where you are viewing from, your engagement fuels this journey, transforming personal pain into shared understanding. Join me as I recount the tale of how I reclaimed not merely a $230,000 Maybach, but the very essence of my identity, wresting it from the grasp of a lifetime of conditional love and carefully constructed deceit. Sometimes, the most profound family secrets are buried so deep they seem impenetrable, safeguarded by decades of silence and the collective, unspoken agreement of those who benefit from their concealment. Yet there comes a moment, a breaking point, when someone decides to pick up the shovel and begin to dig. My excavation began not with a conscious decision, but with a lingering, unshakable intuition, nurtured by a childhood steeped in subtle rejections and stark contrasts. Peering back at the faded hues of my childhood photographs, the glaring disparities were always present, always visible. My three siblings, Michael, Stephanie, and Thomas, were perfect reflections of Richard Wilson's genetic legacy, each blessed with his sun-kissed blonde hair and eyes the vibrant blue of a summer sky. Then there was Nee, the stark anomaly, a cascade of auburn waves, framing hazel eyes that held a depth far beyond their years. "You take after your grandmother," my mother, Elaine, would utter with a practiced ease, a dismissive wave of her hand whenever I, a child of nascent curiosity, dared to question the stark differences that set me apart. I, with the innocent credulity of youth, accepted this explanation, even though no grandmother on either side of our sprawling family tree bore the slightest resemblance to my unique coloring. The physical discrepancies, however, were merely the prologue to a far more profound and painful narrative. Richard Wilson, a titan in the Chicago real estate empire, a mogul whose development sprawled across the Midwest like an intricate web of concrete and ambition, never quite regarded me with the same incandescent pride he bestowed upon my siblings. When Michael, with the effortless grace of a born athlete, would connect with a baseball, sending it soaring over the little league fence, Richard would hoist him onto his broad shoulders, a triumphant roar escaping his lips. When Stephanie, a whirlwind of grace and poise, pirouetted to victory in her dance competitions, he would arrive bearing bouquets of roses, spinning her around in a dizzying display of paternal adoration. For Thomas, whose quiet brilliance shone in his science fair victories, there were lavish, elaborate celebration dinners where his intellectual triumphs were lauded with effusive praise. My academic achievements, consistently eclipsing those of my siblings, were met with nothing more than a distracted nod, a perfunctory, generic, "good job," that felt like a hollow echo in the cavernous space of his indifference. The memory of winning the regional spelling bee in 4th grade remains etched in my mind with an almost painful clarity. While other parents clamored to film their children's moments of glory, my mother sat alone in the audience, her gaze a mixture of pride and a subtle, unreadable sorrow. Richard, of course, had an unmissable meeting. That very same evening, however, he somehow managed to materialize at Michael's regular season baseball game, cheering from the sidelines with the fervor of a devoted fan. "Your father's just busy with work, honey," my mother would offer as an explanation, her eyes, I now realize, never quite meeting mine, as if the very act of voicing the excuse cemented its falsity. She compensated, however, with a boundless wellspring of her own affection, diligently celebrating my accomplishments with special mother-daughter outings, an unspoken attempt to fill the void that even then I sensed existed. The Wilson family resided in a sprawling mansion nestled within the exclusive embrace of Lake Forest, one of Chicago's most prestigious suburbs. 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, shimmering indoor and outdoor pools, and a 3-car garage brimming with Richard's collection of luxury vehicles. It was a monument to outward success. From the outside, we were the quintessential American dream, a picture of familial perfection, the successful businessman and doting father, the elegant, stay-at-home mother, and 4 bright, attractive children. Our Christmas cards, meticulously curated and flawlessly executed, were the envy of the entire neighborhood. Yet, within those pristine, unblemished walls, a starkly different reality unfolded. The cracks in the facade began to appear early. When I was a mere 8 years old, the school initiated a frantic call to my parents. I remained uncollected 2 hours past dismissal. Richard, it turned out, had been assigned the task of picking me up that day, but a sudden business opportunity had, apparently, erased me from his memory. My mother, simultaneously, was at Thomas's doctor's appointment, leading me to endure the pitying gaze of the school secretary, a look that, even now, I can recall with chilling accuracy. Christmas mornings in the Wilson household were elaborate theatrical productions, with mountains of presents cascading beneath a perfectly adorned 12-foot tree. Each year, the subtle yet undeniable pattern repeated itself. My siblings would eagerly unwrap the latest gaming systems, designer clothes, or cutting-edge electronics. My gifts, while undeniably nice enough to quell any overt complaints, were always noticeably less extravagant, less thoughtfully chosen, a stark reflection of my diminished status. One year, when I was 12, Michael, Stephanie, and Thomas each received brand new laptops. My singular offering was a gift card. Still, I tried. God, how I tried to earn Richard's elusive approval. I propelled myself into academic excellence, graduating elementary school with an unblemished record of perfect grades. In middle school, I immersed myself in every conceivable club and activity, a desperate, silent plea for his presence at just one event. I still possess the crumpled program from my solo performance in the 7th grade choir concert, a tangible reminder of the aching anticipation as my eyes ceaselessly scanned the audience, searching for his face in the sea of strangers. My mother later offered the familiar refrain, "He had an emergency client dinner." "Does Dad love me?" The question finally escaped my lips when I was 13, a raw, unvarnished plea for clarity. We sat in her sanctuary, the verdant embrace of her garden, a peaceful refuge from Richard's demanding presence. Her hands, poised over the delicate roses she was tending, froze mid-air. "Of course he does, Audrey," she whispered, her voice a fragile tremor. "He just has a difficult time showing affection." The slight tremble in her voice, however, planted the first serious, insidious seed of doubt in my young mind. By the age of 14, a theory began to coalesce, an explanation that offered a tantalizing, if painful, clarity. I was adopted. This hypothesis, I reasoned, would illuminate the persistent physical differences, the profound emotional distance that had always separated me from the rest of the Wilson clan. During one of Richard's ubiquitous charity galas, with my parents safely absent, I meticulously scoured our home office, a frantic search for any trace of adoption papers. Instead, my fingers brushed against my birth certificate, its crisp paper defiantly listing Richard Wilson as my father. The mystery, it seemed, was destined to persist. Throughout these formative years, Richard's real estate empire continued its relentless ascent. Wilson Properties, his brainchild, now encompassed a vast portfolio of luxury condominiums, towering office complexes, and sprawling shopping centers, transforming skylines across Chicago and its neighboring states. His meteoric success was a recurring feature in prestigious business magazines, often accompanied by carefully staged family photographs that showcased his supposed work-life balance and unwavering family values. The irony of these glossy portrayals was not lost on me, even as a cynical teenager. "Family is everything," he would declare in interviews, his arm draped possessively around my mother, my siblings strategically positioned in the foreground, prominently featured as living testaments to his supposed domestic bliss. I, however, was always positioned slightly apart, as if the photographer, with an uncanny intuition, sensed the invisible barrier that separated me from their manufactured tableau. My mother, bless her heart, ceaselessly attempted to counterbalance Richard's emotional frigidity with the boundless warmth of her own affection. She attended every school event, meticulously preserved every certificate and award I ever received, and painstakingly compiled elaborate scrapbooks documenting my meager achievements. Sometimes I would catch her gaze upon me, a strange, enigmatic blend of pride and an undefinable sadness that at the time remained an indecipherable enigma. The true meaning of that look would only unravel much, much later. Despite the pervasive emotional neglect, our family meticulously maintained appearances, upholding a facade of flawless harmony. Sunday dinners were a sacrosanct, mandatory ritual. Summer vacations to the idyllic Martha's Vineyard were meticulously documented on social media, each carefully curated image projecting an illusion of blissful familial unity. Annual family portraits were commissioned, each snapshot a carefully constructed narrative of perfection. In every single photograph, Richard's hand would rest proprietarily on Michael's shoulder, his other arm encircling Stephanie, a silent testament to his overt favoritism. Thomas would stand proudly beside them, an integral part of their privileged circle. I, inevitably, was always positioned slightly apart, usually relegated to a space beside my mother. I learned over time to internalize this unspoken dynamic, to accept the subtle, yet deeply cutting, rejections as an immutable aspect of my existence. I even constructed elaborate mental narratives, attempting to rationalize his distance, to convince myself that perhaps Richard was simply harder on me because he perceived greater potential within me, that his aloofness was merely a peculiar form of respect for my burgeoning independence. Children, in their inherent vulnerability, possess a remarkable, almost tragic skill for crafting narratives that shield them from the searing agony of painful truths. By the time I transitioned into the tumultuous years of high school, I had perfected the art of seeking validation elsewhere, a desperate attempt to fill the gaping void that Richard's indifference had carved within me. Teachers, sensing my quiet desperation, became my surrogate parents, their praise and encouragement a balm to my aching soul, temporarily assuaging the emptiness. Yet, no external affirmation could truly mend the profound wound inflicted by witnessing my father's face alight with unadulterated pride when gazing at my siblings, while I, his supposed daughter, barely registered in his periphery. High school, rather than offering a clean slate, merely intensified the patterns established in my childhood. I plunged myself into academics with a feverish intensity, driven by an unyielding desire for intellectual distinction, graduating as valedictorian of my class. While my siblings effortlessly maintained respectable B averages that seemingly satisfied Richard's expectations, my flawless 4.0 GPA and SAT scores in the 99th percentile barely registered on his radar. "Not everyone needs to be an academic overachiever, Audrey," he condescendingly remarked during a dinner where my report card was cursorily discussed, before his attention swiftly shifted to Michael's promising football scholarship prospects. The casual dismissal of my hard-won achievements stung more profoundly than any direct criticism could have. My 16th birthday marked a particularly painful milestone, a stark illustration of the disparate treatment within the Wilson household. In our family, turning 16 was an event celebrated with considerable fanfare, a lavish rite of passage. Michael, 2 years prior, had been gifted a brand new BMW, a shining symbol of his favored status. Stephanie's sweet 16 party had been an extravagant affair, costing nearly $20,000, a testament to her parents' success. Unreserved indulgence, and Thomas, in due course, would receive a similar luxury car and a weekend trip to the vibrant heart of New York City. For my 16th, my mother, in a valiant attempt to create a special memory, planned a modest dinner at an upscale restaurant in downtown Chicago. Richard, predictably, arrived 45 minutes late, his gaze repeatedly flitting to his watch throughout the meal, a silent yet blatant indication of his disinterest. He departed before dessert arrived, citing a business emergency that demanded his immediate attention. "I'm sorry, sweetie," my mother murmured, her eyes cast downward, as she watched him disappear, a flicker of profound disappointment in her gaze. "You know how important his work is." But later that night, a sliver of raw truth pierced the carefully constructed facade when I overheard my parents' hushed, yet furious argument in their bedroom. "She's your daughter too, Richard." My mother's voice, usually a model of controlled elegance, trembled with unbridled anger. "I showed up, didn't I?" he retorted, his tone chillingly cold. "For all of 20 minutes. You couldn't even stay for cake? Do you know what message that sends?" "What do you want from me, Elaine?" His voice dropped to a barely audible whisper, yet I could still discern his words through the closed door. "I've provided everything she could need. The best schools, clothes, vacations. What more am I supposed to do?" "Be a father," my mother replied simply. Whatever inscrutable barrier prevented Richard from forming a genuine connection with me extended far beyond mere personality differences. The chasm between my humble celebration and Michael's opulent 16th birthday party, just 2 years prior, could not have been more stark, a brutal reminder of my lesser status. Richard, for Michael's milestone, had rented out the entire top floor of the iconic Willis Tower, inviting half of Chicago's business elite to witness his effusive display of paternal pride. He had delivered an emotional, tear-filled speech, proclaiming his profound pride in his firstborn son, who embodies everything a Wilson should be. As the daunting college application season loomed, I channeled my relentless ambition towards gaining acceptance into the most prestigious universities, clinging to the faint hope that academic achievement at the highest echelon would, finally, earn Richard's long-sought respect. When acceptance letters, emblazoned with the esteemed seals of Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, began to arrive, my mother, with quiet pride, organized a small, intimate celebration dinner. "Northwestern is a better business school anyway," Richard commented dismissively when I announced my acceptance to Harvard, his words laced with thinly veiled disdain. "And it's local." Michael made the right choice, staying in Chicago. The inconvenient truth that my academic pursuits lay in literature and marketing, not the cutthroat world of business, seemed utterly irrelevant to him. Days later, another overheard conversation, like a venomous serpent, coiled itself around my heart, destined to haunt me for years to come. Harvard is asking for 30,000 after scholarships. My mother's voice drifted from Richard's home office, laced with a plea. That's ridiculous, he snapped, his voice devoid of compassion. Northwestern offered Michael a full ride for athletics, and Thomas will likely get the same. My mother's voice, a desperate whisper, countered. Audrey earned academic scholarships, but it doesn't cover everything. Harvard is still Harvard, Richard. His reply, delivered with chilling finality, pierced me to the core. Why should I pay for her to study something useless like English literature 3,000 miles away? Then, my mother's voice, uncharacteristically firm, cut through the tension. You know why you have to do this? We've discussed this before. The conversation abruptly ceased as they became aware of my presence in the hallway. But those words, "You know why you have to do this," echoed in my mind, a relentless, tormenting refrain. What obligation was my mother referring to? What unspoken, clandestine agreement existed between my parents regarding me? Despite Richard's palpable reluctance, I did attend Harvard, majoring in English literature with a minor in marketing, a testament to my unwavering resolve. The sheer physical distance from Chicago, the oppressive shadow of the Wilson family, provided a welcome, much-needed respite from the perpetual reminder of my outsider status. During those 4 transformative years, my returns home were limited to major holidays, where the familiar, agonizing patterns of neglect and indifference continued their relentless dance. Thanksgiving, my sophomore year, stands out with particular clarity, a vivid tableau of my diminished place. Richard had just finalized a momentous development deal, and the dinner conversation revolved entirely around his self-congratulatory successes and my brother's athletic achievements. When I dared to mention my internship offer from a prestigious publishing house, a glimmer of hope in my professional future, Richard abruptly cut me off. The publishing industry is dying, Audrey. You should focus on something practical. Michael's already been offered a position at Wilson Properties after graduation. I wasn't planning to join the family business, I replied, the directness of my words surprising even myself. Richard's expression hardened, his eyes narrowing to cold, impenetrable slits. Of course not. That's for Wilson family members who understand loyalty and tradition. The table fell silent, the tension palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Even my siblings, usually so oblivious, looked visibly uncomfortable with this explicit, brutal exclusion. My mother, ever the peacemaker, swiftly changed the subject, but the damage was irrevocably done. Richard, with chilling clarity, had essentially declared that despite bearing his esteemed name, I was not, in any meaningful sense, truly part of the family that mattered to him. That very night, my sister Stephanie, a rare beacon of fleeting empathy, gently knocked on my bedroom door. Dad was being a jerk at dinner, she offered, her voice a soft apology as she perched delicately on the edge of my bed. You know how he gets when business is stressful. It's not just stress, Steph, I countered, my voice laced with years of suppressed pain. He's always been this way with me. She looked genuinely bewildered, a flicker of confusion in her blue eyes. What do you mean? Dad's tough on all of us. Not like with me. Haven't you noticed? Stephanie's uncomfortable expression betrayed a dawning realization. Perhaps she had noticed, but had deliberately chosen to suppress the uncomfortable truth. He just communicates differently with different people, she offered weakly, her voice thin with unconvincing reassurance. That brief, awkward conversation illuminated a crucial, painful truth. The deeply ingrained family dynamic I had endured was so profoundly normalized that even my own siblings were incapable of fully recognizing its insidious toxicity. To them, Richard was simply a demanding yet ultimately loving father who, in his own peculiar way, propelled his children towards success. Only I, the eternal outsider, truly experienced the bone-chilling indifference that lay concealed beneath his occasional perfunctory acknowledgments. By the time I graduated from Harvard, summa cum laude, with an unblemished academic record, I had already forged an unyielding resolve to carve my own path in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the world. Richard and my mother, with a strained pretense of parental pride, attended the graduation ceremony, but he spent the majority of it hunched over his phone, meticulously checking emails, his attention a million miles away. As the sea of graduates jubilantly tossed their caps into the crisp spring air, I made a silent, private vow. I would build a life so profoundly successful, so utterly self-sufficient, that I would never again require, or even desire, Richard Wilson's fleeting approval. Armed with my prestigious Harvard degree and an unshakable determination to succeed solely on my own terms, I plunged into the daunting abyss of the job market, a period characterized by a challenging economic downturn. Rather than leveraging the formidable Wilson name, which undoubtedly would have flung open countless doors throughout Chicago's influential business community, I deliberately, defiantly, chose to use my mother's maiden name on all my applications. "Why are you doing this?" my mother inquired, her voice laced with concern, upon discovering my altered resume. "Your father's connections could help you." "I need to know I can make it on my own," I asserted, my voice unwavering. What remained unspoken, however, was the raw, undeniable truth. I would rather endure the arduous struggle of independent success than prosper under the shadow of a man who could not, or would not, bring himself to truly love me. My first professional opportunity materialized at a mid-sized marketing firm nestled in the heart of Boston. The starting salary, a meager offering, barely sufficed to cover the exorbitant rent of one modest apartment and the relentless burden of my student loan payments. Yet, it offered something infinitely more valuable than financial comfort, invaluable experience in an industry I passionately loved, completely untainted by Richard's suffocating influence. I immersed myself in my work, toiling 80-hour weeks, eagerly volunteering for every challenging project that came my way, and meticulously studying burgeoning industry trends during my severely limited free time. Within a mere 2 years, my relentless dedication was recognized, and I was deservedly promoted to account manager. By year 3, I was leading my own team, a testament to my burgeoning expertise and unwavering drive. The coveted vice president position arrived before my 30th birthday, accompanied by a salary that finally allowed me to experience the quiet luxury of comfortable living and to begin the crucial process of building my own investment portfolio. During those foundational years of my burgeoning career, my contact with the Wilson family dwindled to mere obligatory holiday calls and the rare, perfunctory visit when business trips inadvertently brought me near the familiar, yet increasingly distant, landscape of Chicago. Richard's real estate empire, a sprawling monument to his ambition, continued its relentless expansion, and my siblings, in their preordained roles, seamlessly integrated themselves into its intricate machinery. Michael, the favored firstborn, ascended to the role of heir apparent, assuming the prestigious title of executive vice president. Stephanie, with her artistic flair, became the head of their interior design division, transforming cold, sterile spaces into works of art. And Thomas, the quiet innovator, managed their technology integration department, ensuring the empire remained at the forefront of modern advancements. My mother, however, remained my unwavering anchor, my one consistent, tender connection to a family that often felt like a foreign entity. We spoke weekly, her voice a comforting balm across the miles, and she visited me in Boston twice a year, always, pointedly, without Richard. During these cherished visits, away from the meticulously maintained facade of Wilson family perfection, she seemed remarkably more relaxed, more authentically herself, a woman unburdened by the relentless demands of her carefully curated existence. "Your father asks about you," she would claim during one such visit. though the details of these supposed inquiries were always vague, unconvincing, and lacking in any genuine specificity. "He has my number," I would reply simply, the subtle sting of his perpetual silence a familiar ache. He never called. At the age of 31, I made the audacious leap from employee to entrepreneur, a courageous act of self-reliance, founding Horizon Marketing Partners, a boutique agency specializing in sophisticated digital strategies for luxury brands. The risk, a leap of faith into the unknown, yielded returns far beyond my wildest expectations. Within a mere 18 months, our fledgling company blossomed, expanding from a modest team of 3 employees to a thriving enterprise of 23, with burgeoning offices in both Boston and New York. My client roster, a testament to our burgeoning reputation, boasted names that even elicited grudging admiration from Richard's exclusive social circle, though I never once leveraged these hard-won connections for the hollow pursuit of family approval. Financial success, however, brought with it a far more profound and precious commodity: personal freedom. I acquired a luxurious condo in downtown Boston, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking, panoramic views of the glistening harbor, a tangible symbol of my independent achievements. My investment portfolio steadily swelled, providing a comforting sense of security and autonomy. For the very first time in my life, I experienced the profound satisfaction of being valued for my authentic contributions, rather than being perpetually measured against the impossible, suffocating expectations of my family. It was during this exhilarating period of professional ascendancy that James entered my life, a man whose presence would irrevocably alter the trajectory of my emotional landscape. Unlike previous relationships, which had inevitably faltered due to a combination of my unwavering workaholic tendencies and my deeply ingrained guarded nature, this connection felt profoundly different from its very inception. James, a corporate attorney with a discerning background in psychology, possessed an uncanny ability to see beyond the carefully constructed facade of my fierce independence to the unhealed wounds that lay raw and vulnerable beneath. 3 months into our deepening relationship, after patiently listening to the convoluted tapestry of my family's stories, he gently, yet firmly suggested a path towards healing: therapy. "You've achieved remarkable success by conventional standards," he observed, his voice soft, yet perceptive. "But I see how the mere mention of your family, especially your father, profoundly changes you. Have you ever considered talking to someone about it?" Initially, I resisted, my ingrained self-reliance instinctively recoiling from the perceived weakness of seeking external help. Yet his quiet persistence, born of genuine concern, eventually prevailed. Dr. Landon, a family therapist specializing in the complex emotional landscape of adult children grappling with emotionally absent parents, became an invaluable guide on my journey toward self-discovery. She helped me meticulously unravel the intricate patterns I had normalized throughout my entire life. The relentless hyperachievement, the profound difficulty in accepting genuine praise, the crippling fear of vulnerability. All of these deeply ingrained behaviors, she explained, traced back to the fundamental unanswered question that had plagued me for decades: why couldn't my father love me? Family secrets, circumstances of birth, projections of their own inadequacies, she mused thoughtfully, her gaze piercing through my defenses. She paused, allowing her words to hang in the air, pregnant with implication. "Have you ever considered the possibility that there might be a reason beyond personality differences for your father's distance?" The question, a silent yet profound tremor, hung suspended in the air between us. James had, months prior, gently alluded to a similar possibility: the unsettling notion that Richard might not, in fact, be my biological father. I had dismissed it then, swatting away the uncomfortable thought like a bothersome fly. But now, within the safe, crucible-like confines of therapy, the idea resurfaced with a terrifying new significance, a chilling clarity. My birth certificate lists him as my father, I stammered, my voice barely a whisper, imbued with the fragility of a child's uncertain plea. Birth certificates record legal parentage, not necessarily biological reality, Dr. Landon replied gently, her words a soothing balm, yet carrying the weight of profound truth. The seed of doubt, now nurtured by professional insight, was irrevocably planted, though I initially resisted its far-reaching implications. What would it truly mean if the man who had subjected me to a lifetime of calculated rejection was not, in fact, my biological father? Would such a revelation finally explain his chilling coldness, or would it merely complicate an already agonizingly painful family dynamic, adding yet another layer of unbearable complexity? James, ever my unwavering anchor, supported me through these emotionally arduous therapy sessions, never once pushing, yet always offering a calming, insightful perspective when I, in my confusion, dared to ask. Unlike previous partners, who had been either intimidated by my hard-won success or repelled by my carefully constructed emotional guardedness, James seemed to possess an innate understanding that my achievements and my defenses were merely two sides of the same intricately carved coin. You don't have to solve the mystery of your family to be worthy of love, he told me one evening, his arm wrapped securely around my shoulders, as we watched the fiery descent of the sun paint the Boston skyline in hues of orange and purple from the panoramic windows of my condo. But if knowing would bring you peace, I'm with you every step of the way. For months, I grappled with the profound implications of this possibility, contemplating the truth without taking any concrete action. My company, Horizon Marketing Partners, in a twist of fate, expanded its operations to Chicago, a business decision I had steadfastly resisted for years, a subconscious effort to avoid encroaching upon Richard's self-proclaimed territory. The opening of the new office necessitated more frequent trips back to my hometown, though I diligently maintained my primary residence in the comforting embrace of Boston. During these infrequent Chicago visits, I occasionally encountered my siblings. Our relationships over the years had evolved into a state of cordial yet palpable distance. Christmas cards exchanged, perfunctory birthday texts, and rare awkward dinners when our increasingly divergent schedules happened to align. They seemed genuinely proud of my independent success, if somewhat bewildered by my complete and utter separation from the sprawling, interconnected web of the family business. Dad mentions your company sometimes, Michael, ever the dutiful son, informed me during one such dinner, a fleeting flicker of something akin to admiration in his eyes. He saw your feature in Forbes. Did he? I replied, the familiar, unwelcome sting of his potential approval still, infuriatingly, affecting me even after all these years. You should come by the house next time you're in town, he suggested, his voice imbued with an uncharacteristic softness. Things change, people change. I harbored profound doubts that Richard, the immutable force of nature, had undergone any genuine transformation. Yet, a flicker of curiosity, a nascent desire for resolution, ignited within me. Perhaps I had changed enough to confront him on an equal footing. My company, a testament to my tireless dedication, now rivaled certain divisions of Wilson Properties in annual revenue, a powerful symbol of my independent ascendancy. I had meticulously built my success without the crutch of his name, without the benefit of his influential connections. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was finally time to confront the ghosts of the past and stride confidently into a future unburdened by their spectral presence. Life, however, in its infinite, unpredictable wisdom, had an entirely different plan in store. Before I could even fully formulate a decision about reconnecting with Richard, my mother's voice, a fragile whisper on the phone, delivered news that would shatter my carefully constructed world, changing everything in an instant. "It's cancer," she articulated, her voice remarkably steady despite the devastating pronouncement. "Stage 3 breast cancer. The doctors are optimistic. But the treatment will be aggressive." I boarded a flight to Chicago that very same day, my carefully constructed life momentarily put on hold, propelled by a primal instinct to be by her side. Despite the profound differences that had long cleaved us apart, the Wilsons, in a rare display of fractured unity, rallied around my mother's harrowing diagnosis. Richard, with his characteristic efficiency, arranged for the most esteemed oncologists, mobilizing his vast network of influence. Michael, ever the pragmatist, meticulously handled the intricate labyrinth of insurance and paperwork. Stephanie, with her organizational prowess, meticulously crafted a care schedule, ensuring my mother's comfort and well-being. And Thomas, the quiet intellectual, buried himself in research, diligently exploring potential clinical trials. I, in a selfless act of familial devotion, took an immediate leave of absence from my thriving company, committing to remain in Chicago throughout the arduous initial phase of her treatment. Seeing Richard again, after years of minimal contact, was jarring, a stark reminder of the passage of time and the corrosive effects of age. His once golden blonde hair was now predominantly gray, a stark testament to the years, and deep indelible lines were etched around his eyes, mirroring the burdens he carried. He acknowledged my presence with a perfunctory nod upon my arrival at the hospital, but maintained his familiar emotional distance, his focus entirely, almost obsessively, on my mother's precarious care. On the third day of her extended hospital stay, an seemingly innocuous incident transpired. A small, yet significant, event that would ultimately unravel decades of meticulously guarded secrecy. A nurse, with the quiet efficiency of her profession, entered the room to draw blood for additional tests, her eyes meticulously checking my mother's wristband and chart. "We'll need to type her blood again," she mentioned casually, a slight furrow in her brow. "There seems to be a discrepancy in the records." "She's O negative," I stated automatically, the information surfacing from the depths of my memory, a fact ingrained since childhood discussions about our family's disparate blood types. Richard and my siblings, I recalled with chilling clarity, were all A positive, while my mother and I shared the rarer O negative type. The nurse looked up, surprised, a flicker of genuine confusion in her eyes. "Are you elated? You have the same blood type." "I'm her daughter," I replied, my voice steady, yet an inexplicable tremor of unease rippled through me. "Oh," the nurse uttered, her confusion visibly deepening. "I assumed you were a friend. The patient's husband mentioned that all their children have his blood type." After she departed, the seemingly innocuous information settled within me, the pieces of a fragmented puzzle slowly, inexorably clicking into place. My rudimentary biology classes had imparted enough knowledge for me to understand that if Richard was A positive and my mother O negative, their biological children could indeed be either A positive or O negative. The fact that my siblings were all A positive while I was O negative wasn't, in isolation, an impossibility. But when combined with every other subtle yet profound disparity I had experienced throughout my life, it became another crucial piece of the agonizing puzzle, a stark confirmation of a truth I had long suspected. During the arduous weeks of my mother's initial treatment, I purchased an ancestry DNA test, a desperate act of self-discovery. I rationalized it to myself as mere curiosity, a welcome distraction during the interminable hours spent in hospital waiting rooms, a futile attempt to quell the rising tide of anxious anticipation. The stark reality, however, was far more profound. I needed to unearth the truth, whatever its agonizing implications might be. When the results arrived, 6 weeks later, the sealed envelope felt impossibly heavy in my trembling hands. I opened them alone, sequestered within the sterile anonymity of my hotel room, preparing myself for whatever revelations lay within. The ethnicity breakdown revealed nothing particularly surprising: predominantly Western European ancestry, a genetic echo of what I already knew of both the Wilson lineage and my mother's family. The truly shattering information, the revelation that would irrevocably alter the very fabric of my understanding, resided within the DNA matches section. There, starkly, undeniably, listed clearly, were my mother and all three of my siblings, each with the expected percentages for a biological mother and half-siblings. Richard Wilson, the man who had shaped, or rather misshaped, my entire existence, was conspicuously absent from my genetic relatives. I sat with this devastating information for days, paralyzed by its profound implications, unsure of how to proceed, how to unleash this truth upon a carefully constructed world. My mother's condition had, mercifully, stabilized after her second grueling round of chemotherapy. Her prognosis was improving, a fragile beacon of hope. Yet she remained physically vulnerable, her body ravaged by the relentless battle against cancer. Was this, in her fragile state, truly the right time to confront decades of insidious deception? Eventually, I chose a quiet afternoon, a moment when she felt relatively strong, a brief respite from the relentless onslaught of her illness, and we were mercifully alone in the hushed confines of her hospital room. "Mom," I began, my voice carefully modulated, attempting to control the tremor that threatened to betray my inner turmoil. "I need to ask you something important, and I need the truth." Perhaps she discerned something in the unyielding intensity of my gaze. Or perhaps, in the depths of her own conscience, she had been anticipating this very conversation for years. A sword of Damocles suspended over her carefully guarded secrets. But understanding dawned in her eyes before I even presented the undeniable evidence of the DNA test results. "Is Richard my biological father?" I asked directly, the question hanging heavy in the air, weighted with the accumulated pain of a lifetime. Tears, unbidden and profuse, welled in her eyes, cascading silently down her cheeks. "Oh, Audrey," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion, as her frail hand reached for mine, a gesture of desperate plea. I always knew this day might come. The story, a painful tapestry of half-truths and long-held secrets, emerged slowly, agonizingly, from the depths of her memory. Shortly before her engagement to Richard, my mother had, in a moment of youthful indiscretion, reconnected with an old boyfriend, a man named David Calloway. A single night, fueled by nostalgia and the intoxicating effervescence of champagne, had led to an unplanned, yet profoundly consequential pregnancy. By the time she discovered she was expecting, she and Richard had already publicly announced their impending engagement, a pronouncement that seemed to seal her fate. "Richard agreed to raise you as his own," she explained, tears streaming uncontrollably down her face, a torrent of long-suppressed anguish. "But he made me promise never to tell anyone, including you. He was building his business, cultivating an image. A pregnant fiancée was problematic enough without adding infidelity to the story." "Did he ever plan to tell me?" I asked, the question a desperate plea for a different reality, though a chilling certainty of the answer already resided within me. "He thought it was kinder not to," she whispered weakly, her voice thin with the weight of her deceit. "He tried, Audrey. In the beginning, he really tried to love you the same way. But he couldn't or wouldn't. The distinction whether he couldn't or wouldn't love me seemed utterly meaningless after decades of emotional neglect. A lifetime of agonizing indifference." "Who is David Calloway?" I pressed, a new raw wound opening within me. "Is he still alive? Does he know about me?" My mother shook her head, her gaze filled with an even deeper sorrow. "He moved to California before you were born. I never told him. Richard insisted we make a clean break." She hesitated, a visible struggle within her as she grappled with another painful truth. I looked him up online a few years ago. He passed away in 2015. Heart attack. The revelation that my biological father had died, completely unaware of my existence, hit me with an unexpected, profound intensity. A connection I had never known existed was irrevocably severed, extinguished before I could even acknowledge its potential. Despite the searing anger that surged within me at decades of insidious deception, I found myself unable to deny her desperate request. She needed the fragile unity of our family, however flawed, to face the relentless onslaught of cancer. The truth, a bitter pill, had waited 34 years. It could, I reasoned, wait a few more months. Throughout the remainder of her arduous treatment, I meticulously maintained the carefully constructed facade, a silent accomplice in a lie that had defined my life. I attended family dinners, enduring Richard's perpetual polite indifference, a quiet testament to his unwavering nature. I coordinated with my siblings about her care, meticulously omitting the profound truth I now possessed, that genetically, they were merely my half-siblings. I watched Richard, with a chilling detachment, play the role of the devoted husband, all while knowing that he had perpetuated a lifelong lie that had inflicted immeasurable, agonizing pain upon me. 6 months later, a sigh of collective relief swept through our fractured family as my mother entered remission, a triumphant victory in her courageous battle against cancer. The family, in a rare moment of genuine celebration, gathered for a joyous dinner at her favorite restaurant, the air alive with laughter and the clinking of glasses. As champagne flowed freely and toasts were raised to her remarkable recovery, Richard, ever the showman, grandly announced his plans for an elaborate, unprecedented 65th birthday celebration. Now that Elaine is better, he declared, his voice booming with self-importance, it's time to celebrate life properly. I'm renting the grand ballroom at the Peninsula. Everyone who's anyone in Chicago will be there. As the lavish plans for this extravagant event meticulously unfolded, my mother, during one of our precious private moments, gently pulled me aside. I'm going to tell him that you know, she whispered quietly, her voice imbued with a newfound resolve. Now that I'm better, it's time for honesty. I nodded, a silent acknowledgement of her courageous intention, yet a profound skepticism lingered within me. I doubted it would alter anything fundamental between Richard and me. 3 decades of ingrained emotional distance, a chasm carved by years of neglect, could not be erased by a simple, belated acknowledgement of biological reality. 2 weeks before Richard's opulent birthday extravaganza, my phone chimed, signaling an incoming call from my mother. I told him, she stated simply, her voice devoid of emotion, as if the weight of the confession had finally lifted from her shoulders. He knows that you know. What did he say? I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs, a mixture of dread and anticipation coursing through me. A long, agonizing pause stretched between us, thick with unspoken truths. He said it doesn't change anything, she finally relayed, her voice a fragile whisper. That legally, you're still a Wilson. Another pause, even longer, more fraught with unspoken meaning. He asked that you not mention it at his birthday celebration, for the family's sake. Of course, even now, appearance, the meticulously crafted facade, mattered more than the raw, unvarnished truth. Richard's carefully cultivated reputation, the pristine Wilson family image, remained paramount, untouchable, more important than any emotional reckoning. Will you come to the party? My mother asked, tentatively, her voice a fragile plea. It would mean a lot to me. Despite everything, the decades of pain, the monumental deception, I found myself unable to refuse her this solitary request. After witnessing her courageous battle for her life, after seeing her unwavering resilience in the face of death, I understood, with a chilling clarity, the fragility of time, the profound importance of being present, even in the most difficult, emotional. But this, I swore to myself, would be the very last time I participated in the meticulously orchestrated family charade. The formal invitation arrived via courier, a thick, heavy cream cardstock nestled within an embossed envelope, formally announcing a celebration of Richard Wilson's 65 years at the Peninsula Chicago's Grand Ballroom. Black tie required. RSVP essential. No gifts necessary. The final line, a sardonic flourish, elicited a bitter, hollow laugh from my lips. Richard Wilson, a man whose net worth soared into the hundreds of millions, subtly suggesting no gifts, while simultaneously expecting extravagant tokens of appreciation, testaments to his power and influence, from every single person within his vast social and business orbit. "Are you sure you want to go?" James asked, his voice filled with gentle concern, as we discussed the impending event over an intimate dinner in my Boston apartment. He had been my unwavering rock, my steadfast anchor throughout the tumultuous period of my mother's illness and the subsequent shattering DNA revelation. "I need closure," I explained, the words escaping my lips with a newfound clarity. 34 years of feeling like an outsider, of perpetually wondering what was inherently wrong with me. My gaze met his, unwavering, imbued with a steely resolve. Now I know it wasn't me at all. It was him. His choice, his lie, his profound inability to love a child who wasn't biologically his. James nodded thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding of my pain. "What exactly are you planning?" he asked, his voice a quiet invitation for my confession. I hesitated, the audacious idea, born from my conversation with my mother, now fully formed and pulsating with a fierce determination. "I'm going to acknowledge the truth publicly," I stated, my voice firm, resolute. Not dramatically, not vindictively, but honestly. No more secrets, no more pretending. "He'll be furious," James warned, a note of caution in his tone. "I'm counting on it," I admitted, a grim smile playing on my lips. "But what can he do? Disown me? I've never been a true daughter to him anyway." James reached across the table, his hand enveloping mine, a silent promise of unwavering support. "I'll be right beside you, whatever you decide." Having him in my corner, his unwavering belief in me, made all the difference, empowering me to face the impending confrontation. Together, we meticulously strategized my approach to the party, crafting a plan that would be dignified yet utterly unmistakable. The truth, finally spoken aloud, would reverberate through the very social circle Richard had so meticulously protected with his pervasive lies. With precisely 2 weeks until the monumental event, I threw myself into preparations with a fervent intensity. Each detail a brushstroke in the canvas of my liberation. The outfit was paramount, a crucial element in projecting the image of a woman reborn. I desired to exude success, unwavering confidence, and an unassailable self-sufficiency. After visiting several high-end boutiques, I selected a striking emerald green evening gown. A masterpiece from a designer whose marketing campaign my company had recently managed, a subtle nod to my hard-won triumphs. The vibrant color, I noted with a defiant satisfaction, flawlessly highlighted my auburn hair, the very feature that had perpetually set me apart from the homogeneous blonde hues of the Wilson clan. Next came the perplexing matter of a gift. Despite the invitation's polite suggestion of no gifts necessary, arriving empty-handed was simply not an option, a capitulation I refused to make. What, then, do you bestow upon a man who seemingly possesses everything, yet has given you nothing of what truly matters? The answer, a spark of audacious brilliance, materialized during a seemingly innocuous conversation with Michael, who had called to coordinate travel details for the party. "Dad's been eyeing the new Maybach," he mentioned casually, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. He test drove one last week, probably waiting for one of us to notice his hints. The new Mercedes Maybach S-Class, a vehicle whose astronomical price tag hovered around $230,000. Exactly the kind of ostentatious status symbol Richard would undoubtedly appreciate. A tangible display of power and wealth. With my company's burgeoning success, I could undeniably afford it, though it would indeed represent a significant, audacious expenditure. Maybe we should go in on it together, Michael suggested, his voice laced with the expectation of shared responsibility. Split it 4 ways between the kids. Actually, I replied, a split-second decision solidifying into an unshakable resolve. I think I'll handle this one myself. Michael's surprise was palpable through the phone line. The whole thing? That's generous considering. He trailed off, but the unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. Considering my perpetually strained relationship with Richard, considering I owed Richard absolutely nothing. It's time for grand gestures, I said ambiguously, my voice imbued with a quiet, yet formidable,